Hello everybody, Naylor1904 here, and guys, finally, Kendrick has released an album, finally. It's been 5 long years, and the rap scene has just gone so downhill since the last time Kendrick released an album. These 5 years have been so miserable, but now Kendrick finally has come out of the dark and has released an album, and that's what we're going to be reviewing today. Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers by Kendrick Lamar. So kind of just to give you a little background of Kendrick, I know a lot of you will know, but let's just get into it anyway. Kendrick, the last studio album he released was Damn in 2017. He released the Black Panther album in 2018, but he wasn't on every song on that album, so that doesn't really count. But the last full-on project of his, not for a film or anything, was Damn in 2017. And he left us on a pretty good note. Of course, Kendrick has not really made a bad album at all. He has only done good, but Damn's a little hard of an album just because it came right after To Pimp a Butterfly, which was his magnum opus, his masterpiece, and so it didn't seem as good. Granted, it's still a good album. And so it's been 5 years, we've been through a pandemic, and it's really interesting to see, where Kendrick would go with this album, because it's been so long that he hasn't made an album. And just a fair warning, he definitely hit the spot on this album. What's really cool about Kendrick, which is what you get with every album, is the fact that he does not make the same thing. He always makes different albums, different genres of music. I mean, it's all hip hop, but obviously it's different in the way that his albums sound. And with this album, you get a different style of Kendrick. Of course, you still get the same, you get the great delivery, you get the great flow from Kendrick, you get the different voices of Kendrick, which we definitely see on this album. But kind of just to get into it, this album plays out sort of as a therapy session. The album starts out with Kendrick kind of talking to a therapist, is what it seems like, and really discuss the therapist really until the end of the album. Some parts in it, but not really, which is kind of the same as this album with Good Kid, Mad City, except it's not as connected, because in Good Kid, Mad City you have those clips of them talking through the phone. With this album you don't really have that, which makes it for a really cool album. One thing I really love about this album is that there's not really a big plot or a big story that is kind of being communicated. It's more open, and it's more open for discussion, more open-ended, and we really see more themes explored because of it, and we focus more on characters more so than like a plot kind of a movie, which is Good Kid, Mad City. And usually you'd be like, well, that's pretty cool to have a plot, like why would we not want that? But the thing is, we've already seen that with Kendrick. With Good Kid, Mad City, he had a huge, epic story. When I listen to Good Kid, Mad City, it really feels like I'm listening, or like I'm watching a movie. And then To Pimp a Butterfly, he kind of stayed away from that. And then Damn was kind of like a mix, like a kind of half and half. Like some of the album of Damn was focusing on like a story in his life, but that other half was just really just talking about specific topics like gun violence and racism and stuff. And so this album, he kind of goes back to that Good Kid, Mad City, but it's not quite as much like Good Kid, Mad City, because of course Kendrick's going to change his style, and which is what I love about this album. It's more open-ended, and it dives more deep into these topics. And with this album, there's just so much themes being communicated. Kind of the theme of Kendrick being your savior, but not really your savior. Kendrick's pride is also another theme on this album. Of daddy issues is a theme. Sexual abuse, toxic relationships, addiction, and homophobia and transphobia as well. And so it's pretty crazy that Kendrick communicates this amount of themes in this album, because this is nothing new for Kendrick. He communicates a lot of themes in his work, but not so much. Like, there is literally so much themes on this album. And so which honestly, just before we really get into this album, I'm not here to dissect the music. I was having a conversation with a friend the other day. I'm talking about Dylan, and the music doesn't have to have a meaning. And that's not the reason why you should listen to music. You should listen to music because it's song. When we listen to music, we don't listen to, it's not like we're listening to life advice or something like that. When we listen to music, it's to listen to music, it's to enjoy, it's an art form. And so I'm just gonna say just straight up that if you're watching this review to try to kind of find the meaning of this album, this is not the review to watch, because honestly, with every Kendrick album, it's really hard to find the meaning, especially since I'm doing this review a couple days after it just came out. But even his other albums, like To Pimp a Butterfly, Good Kid, Mad City, there's still stuff that I don't really quite understand and can't really piece together. And this album is even more so, because at least with the other albums, they were pretty close with each other. But this album has been released 5 years since his other work, which 5 years in music terms is a long time. And plus we just haven't really heard from Kendrick. Like, it's not just the fact that, he hasn't been making music, but we've been hearing about his personal life. Like, I haven't heard anything from Kendrick. He really has just dipped from the scene. And so, which makes this album more hard to discover, especially when he's talking about himself. Because as much as we like to think that we know a lot about celebrities and about their personal lives, we really don't. We only know what we hear, what we see on social media and on the internet. And so we don't know Kendrick like that. We don't know his everyday life. We don't know his family. So it's going to be hard when we listen to an album to try and figure out the meaning. So I'm not here to discuss that. I'm here more to discuss the art and the music and just how great of an album it is. And so kind of getting into that, it starts off with this epic song, United in Grief. And this is such an epic first song. Just it's kind of like a opener to the whole therapist session kind of thing. But it's also kind of just recapping what Kendrick has been through over the past 5 years. Obviously it's been tough on him, and kind of a theme that he's going to continue through this album is the whole idea of being your savior, because a lot of people have really loved on Kendrick and say that Kendrick kind of has, freed them from their racism in their mind, that mindset, kind of something that he really discusses on To Pimp a Butterfly and Damn in particular. So To Pimp a Butterfly, he kind of introduces that idea because it's a big idea that kind of started coming around that time, and especially on the song Mortal Man on To Pimp a Butterfly, which is one of my favorite Kendrick songs ever, where he's basically saying that, like, hey, I'm not always going to be perfect. Look at Michael Jackson, look at, other famous figures, which is also what he talks about on this album, but I'm not always going to be there for you. I'm not always going to be perfect. I'm just a normal person. So, when stuff goes wrong, don't be so quick to just write me off, because I wouldn't do that to you, basically. And so that's kind of what he kind of introduces that idea in To Pimp a Butterfly, kind of like near the end of that album. And then Damn, he kind of really wrestles with that and really struggles with that. And he kind of always has struggled with that, with just his music, reaching deaf ears, his music, not really, like he's going out here putting his effort, trying to really get people to listen to his message and to maybe, change the way they think, and people just not doing that. And Kendrick's really struggled with that, not because he's arrogant, not because he wants people to agree with him, but because he wants to make a better world and a better place. And so Kendrick really struggled with that after Damn, and in that album Damn he kind of discusses that. But on this album he kind of goes back to that theme, and I think Kendrick now with this release of this album, he finally has just come to terms with, people aren't going to see it for, the way I see it, it's not going to, change the world, but, because it's an impossible task. But with that said, I'm still going to go out there and make the music because I love it and we love it. And so that's really cool that Kendrick, kind of something that he's going to communicate throughout the album, especially on the song Savior, like, basically saying, I'm not your savior, man, I know it's pretty straightforward, but I'm not your savior, I can't do the job for you. And that's kind of like the way the album artwork works. He's wearing the crown of thorns, kind of like Jesus, because he's saying he's his savior. But Kendrick's face on that album cover, his face, and you can really just tell that he's struggling, and he's not the savior, because the savior doesn't struggle. The savior saves you, but he cannot deal with it. And he even talks about that on the song Crown, where he says, like, this crown, the weight of this crown is just too much, and it's making my head so heavy, And so Kendrick has kind of come to terms that he can't change anything. He's still gonna make music. He still loves us. So that's all that matters, which is kind of cool, kind of a happy theme, because this album is kind of sad in a lot of areas. But also just so kind of moving on with the songs. On the song N90, which, by the way, on the song United in Grief, you have some really cool piano work. I just love the way this album's produced. This album sounds so amazing. It sounds so brand new, but it also sounds kind of like old vintage, like early 2010s rap. You know, kind of something you'd hear like on Good Kid, Mad City, or like some like Kanye album of the 2010s. But it also sounds brand new, and so I love that. And on the song N95 in particular, such a great song, probably my favorite on the album. It just sounds so vintage, but also sounds so new, and I just love the theme, the idea that is communicated on N95 with Kendrick basically saying that if you take all this stuff out, if you take your pride, if you take your lust, if you take, you know, your money and stuff, you're gonna look really ugly on the inside. And you're gonna look really, really ugly, and your life's gonna be really icky, and so that's a really cool theme, you know, kind of probably what Kendrick feels too. Like, I look like this really cool person to you guys as a rapper, as a producer, and the music I make is amazing and it blows your mind, but really, if you take all that away, I'm not really that cool of a person, you know? And so it's a really cool theme. I love that Kendrick, I just love how humble Kendrick is, you know, because most rappers nowadays, they're just so arrogant, and he kind of calls, you know, Drake and Kanye West out on a later song on this album. So I just really love that. I'm not gonna talk about every song, but also the song Father Time, such a great song, kind of talking about, you know, Kendrick having daddy issues, which may seem kind of cringe and may seem kind of like, okay, I don't really care, like that's kind of dumb, but Kendrick's songwriting, his lyrics are just so amazing, you know, of communicating this like story in this 4-minute song of struggling with you know, he complains about his daddy issues, but you know, people around him didn't even have dads to grow up, you know, and so that's really awesome. And I love that. And then another song, We Cry Together. Wow, what an intense song that is. Kind of plays out, he has the actress Taylor Page in this song. It kind of plays out as kind of like two couples fighting, a really toxic relationship. Just the amount of F words that are used, you know, he's like, F you, F you, F you, F you. Like, it's just like, oh my gosh, like it's just so in your face. And just the end of it, you know, them kind of erasing, like trying to forget the issue that they were fighting about this whole time. You know, she's complaining that, you know, Kendrick is a womanizer, or whoever the man is in this relationship is a womanizer, and is very sexist, and only looks at women as like sex objects. And she even goes so far to say that you're the reason why R. Kelly, you know, didn't realize what he was doing was bad, and that Harvey Weinstein did what he did because of people like you. It's so intense, so in your face. It's pretty crazy songwriting. And then at the end, they just kind of forget, and they essentially have sex, and then it says "Stop clap dancing around the conversation" or something like that. And it's a really great song that really adds so much layers and meaning to this album. I just love about this album is just how dense of an album it is. You know, with how many themes are communicated, it just really feels that every moment matters so much more, and you have to pay attention more. I mean, this isn't necessarily a short album. It is a double album. It's over an hour, but it feels so short when you listen to it. It feels like, you know, you've only been listening to music for like 20 minutes, but really it's been an hour. So Kendrick, kudos to Kendrick for that. Then you know, we kind of go to the second half. Purple Hearts is a great last song on that first half, but then we go in the second half where the album's kind of split into two. The first half is kind of split up as like the Big Steppers, talking about whoever that is, and then the second half is talking about the Mr. Morale. And so we get kind of the character of Mr. Morale communicated. And honestly, I have no clue who Mr. Morale is, who Big Steppers is. We'll kind of go into that later, but another song that really strikes me on this album is Auntie Diaries. A really crazy song with what's being communicated. Basically, Kendrick talking about how his aunt is now a man now. That's just kind of the way it is, and he always used to grow up seeing that, you know, calling her, you know, homophobic slurs, and not really realizing how bad it is until he grew up, and then he kind of like respected, you know, this person. And it's a really, like, the instrumentals on that song, the production is such a great is so great on this album. Adds so much weight to this song, kind of a beat that's really like making you realize, you know, and it's such a great song that again just adds more layers, and is really surprising for rap to be, because in rap there's a lot of gang violence being discussed. Just the history of rap, a lot of gang violence, gang banging, just a lot of violence, drug dealing, and kind of like being sexist towards women. But then Kendrick just writes a song about how it's kind of messed up how we've been so transphobic against this person, and how he's realized that this person's not that bad. And so it's pretty crazy, the stuff that Kendrick communicates. And so I really love that song, and the album just ends on a great song, Mirror. Also the song Mother I Sober, an amazing song that kind of ends the whole like therapy session, and then it ends off with the song Mirror, which is an amazing song. And honestly, there's not a lot I can say about this album. I don't know a lot about it. It's kind of like my initial reactions. I mean, I've heard the album a couple times now, but I'm impressed with Kendrick. I will say, I am very surprised that he was able to make this great of an album, taking 5 years off, with the rap game changing so much from 2017. And as for the characters, I don't really know who they are. I thought, a couple theories is I thought that, I think maybe the big steppers are like these rappers like Kendrick not Kendrick, like Drake and Kanye, who are these arrogant people. And then Mr. Morale is like Kendrick, kind of speaking, morals to these people. Or maybe Kendrick's the big stepper and Morale is God. I'm not really too sure, who's who. There's a lot of different, lines in the album that you could pick out and say, this is what it is, or this is what it is, but really, it's not really clearly communicated to you. So I'm not really too sure. This is an album that we're going to have to listen to very closely for the next couple of years. Probably an album we're not really going to figure out for another couple of years. And just some stuff on the album that we're never going to figure out, kind of like To Pimp a Butterfly, kind of like Good Kid, Mad City. So I'm really impressed. I think this album is way better than Damn. Just because Damn has not a lot of weak spots, but Damn has some weak spots, some bad songs on there. This song doesn't really have any bad songs. It just, every song is really good, and the flow of it is really good. It's it is kind of a long album. It's an hour and 13 minutes, but it feels so short when you listen to it. And I just think the production's better than Damn. I mean, I'm more impressed with Damn because it's kind of like a trap album, which is kind of a crazy style for Kendrick to go to. Which I know is not surprising. Kendrick changes his style a lot, but just to go to trap and be able to communicate the deep themes that he communicated on Damn, and the songwriting on Damn is pretty impressive. But I think this album is better all around. The production's way better. The rapping is way better. The themes that are communicated, the overall message is so much stronger than Damn. I don't really know if I can say if it's better than To Pimp a Butterfly or his other albums, because it did just come out. It'll be interesting to see where this album ranks a couple of years from now. Because even Damn, when it first came out, we didn't really know, kind of where it was in Kendrick's discography until a couple years after it came out. And so, I don't know, man. I'm impressed in Kendrick. I will say, like, it's just so amazing that he comes back, after all these long breaks and just continues to change the rap game, making all these amazing albums. And it's really credit to Kendrick, because when we look at the end of the day, when we look at the greatest artists of all time, greatest musical artists, we look at these artists who changed, to different styles. Not just artists that stayed with the same, music, but changed their music as they went on. Like, like Bob Dylan, changing from the folk scene to the rock scene, and then eventually doing other genres like country and kind of pop and kind of soul, actually, and gospel. Or like David Bowie changing from psychedelic rock to R&B to pop to new wave. And so Kendrick has done that. He really, every album sounds completely different, and it's insane. I'm not as impressed nowadays because he's already established, at this point in time, he's already established that he is one of the greatest MCs ever. And so it's not as impressive as, early on in his career. And he can take a lot of risks, which he did take a lot of risks on this album, but just early on in his career, going from Section 80 to Good Kid, Mad City to Pimp a Butterfly, like, it's just crazy. Kendrick is just one of the greatest musical artists of all time. And so I give this album an 8.3 out of 10. And so tell me what your guys' thoughts are on this album. Did you love it? I really hope you did, because Kendrick is amazing. And I thank you guys for watching, and have a good day.